It's November 7th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the latest developments in Gaza. According to Palestinian health authorities, the death toll from Israeli strikes has surpassed 10,000, which includes around 4,000 children. The UN says that Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. South Korea will speed up and complete the construction of the first phase of the Great Train Express commuter rail network by next March, in the hopes of more convenient commuting and a change to the economic landscape in terms of real estate and industry. Chilly weather and cold winds have announced themselves here in South Korea, with some parts of the central region seeing cold wave alerts and some areas expected to see snow today. A month since Hamas militants attacked Israel, more than 10,000 Palestinians have been killed. And the WHO also says tens of thousands of pregnant women and new mothers are at risk due to a lack of medical facilities caused by Israeli airstrikes. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
Gaza's health ministry said Monday that more than 10,000 Palestinians have been killed since the start of the armed conflict between Israel and Hamas. Among those killed, more than 4,100 are children. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called Gaza a graveyard for children, with the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency adding that one child has been killed every 10 minutes. The World Health Organization has also raised great concern over the health of pregnant women, new mothers, and infants in the Gaza Strip, where many hospitals and medical facilities have shut down due to ongoing airstrikes by Israel. According to the WHO, there are about 50,000 new mothers and pregnant women in the Gaza Strip, with more than 180 babies born every day. It added that 4,600 pregnant women and 380 newborns residing in refugee camps operated by the UN throughout Gaza need treatment. Meanwhile, Israeli forces advanced deeper into Gaza on Monday with more airstrikes overnight. Monday's airstrikes and ground attacks focused on the northern half of the Gaza Strip, where the Israel Defense Forces believe Hamas has most of its strongholds. On Sunday, the Israeli military struck over 450 Hamas targets while also taking control of a Hamas military compound. Within the compound were underground tunnels, observation points, and training facilities for Hamas fighters. Following a two-day suspension, dozens of foreign passport holders, as well as some medical evacuees on Monday, passed through the Rafah crossing from Gaza into Egypt. According to the Gaza Border Authority, Egyptians and foreign citizens already on pre-approved lists issued since last week were allowed through. 80 dual nationals and 17 medical evacuees left Gaza through Rafah, with 48 aid trucks crossing in the other direction. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
New U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean Human Rights Julie Turner has said Washington will cooperate with partners and allies and give strength to the voices of defectors in order to resolve the human rights issues in North Korea. Turner was speaking at our inauguration in Washington on Monday, where she promised to achieve 5 priorities outlined in her Senate confirmation hearing. And those promises include cooperation with partners such as South Korea to improve the human rights of North Korean defectors, strengthening accountability at the UN level, and urging North Korea to improve human rights. The Special Envoy for North Korean Human Rights is an ambassador-level position involved in the overall formulation and implementation of the U.S. government's human rights policy toward North Korea. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making a 2-day visit to Seoul from Wednesday. Now, his trip will be a busy one with a lot to cover on the security and diplomatic front. For more, let's turn to Professor Min Jung-won this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Professor Min, it'll be Blinken's first Seoul visit in over 2 years and also the first under the Yoon administration. Now, the question is, why is it coming and why now?
Yes, as you mentioned, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit South Korea later this week, and it will be his first trip to Seoul since the launch of Yoon government. And it is known that Secretary Blinken will have a 2-day trip to Seoul after attending the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Tokyo. And in Seoul, Blinken will have meetings with President Yoon, Foreign Minister Park Jin, and National Security Advisor Jo Tae-yong. So it is likely that they will discuss various issues like the RK-US alliance, North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats, and its military cooperation with Russia, war in Ukraine, and escalating tensions in the Middle East. There are lots of issues that they will deal with. In addition, it is expected that there will be a summit between U.S. and China during the upcoming APEC summit at San Francisco later this month. So attention has been paid to whether Blinken will share some information about the summit with his South Korean counterpart during his visit to Seoul.
Right, lots of diplomatic events are unfolding, like you mentioned, the upcoming summit between Biden and Xi, and also a lot of developments are happening here on the Korean Peninsula. But at the same time, there are concerns that the U.S. attention will be turned more toward to the crises over in Ukraine and maybe over in the Middle East rather than here on the Korean Peninsula. Professor Min, is that so? Should South Korea be really worried about it?
Yes, I think that the Secretary Blinken will talk about the crisis in Ukraine and the Middle East with his South Korean counterparts during his visit to Seoul. But before talking about those issues, the Secretary Blinken will also emphasize the U.S. commitment to the defense of South Korea and reaffirm the importance of the trilateral cooperation among South Korea, U.S., and Japan following the Camp David summit. So although U.S. is very busy with coping with both the war in Ukraine and Israel-Hamas conflict at the same time, we will also try to ensure that it continues to actively engage in the Indo-Pacific region, where U.S. has its vital interests in the 21st century. And at the core of the U.S. engagement in the Indo-Pacific region, including the tracking the rise of China and the search of policy orientation, requires to enhance its cooperation with the major regional allies like South Korea and Japan. So there would be a little change in U.S. commitment to defending South Korea and stably managing the security situation on the Korean Peninsula, despite the ongoing crisis in Ukraine and the Middle East.
Definitely. You mentioned this earlier. Blinken's trip is also timely due to those developments here on the Korean Peninsula, with North Korea likely to go ahead with its third attempt to launch a spy satellite within the year. Now, there will probably be a collective voice calling out on the North again this time, right?
Yes, I think so. During the Secretary Blinken's visit to Seoul, one of the main agendas of the meetings with his South Korean counterparts will be North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats and Pyongyang's increasing military cooperation with Moscow. As you know, North Korea announced that it plans to test launch another military spy satellite in October after 2 unsuccessful attempts in May and August, but it has not taken place yet. So to cope with North Korea's continuous provocations, U.S. will take robust steps in the military preparedness and cooperation with South Korea, and it will also continue to strictly implement UN Security Council resolutions. In addition, Secretary Blinken is likely to reaffirm the U.S. commitment to provide extended deterrence to South Korea against North Korea's military threats. And regarding increasing military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang, it is likely that U.S. will continue to take steps to hold North Korea accountable for its actions, including the additional sanctions. So we will see what will actually happen later this week.
Right, that calling out on the regime will only be firmer and stricter. We also have to go back to the crisis over in Ukraine and in the Middle East. Then what conclusion do you think Blinken and President Yoon will actually draw out on those conflicts?
Well, the South Korea has been cautious and will be cautious continuously. Basically, as I mentioned, the Secretary Blinken will talk about the crisis in Ukraine and the Middle East during his visit to Seoul, because the two countries are very important to the international players at the current stage. And regarding the war in the Ukraine and Israel and Hamas conflict, U.S. has provided military weapons and equipment and humanitarian aid, but has not directly involved in the military operations there. And South Korea has the similar situations. South Korea has played its roles by providing humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. So they will talk about how South Korea could provide additional assistance to Ukraine and what roles South Korea could do for the Israel and Hamas conflict. But in my opinion, considering that South Korea has taken a serious, cautious position about Israel and the Hamas conflict, it is very likely that South Korea will focus on providing just the humanitarian assistance to the Middle East as a responsible global stakeholder.
Definitely. Professor Mann, before I let you go, Blinken's visit to Seoul also comes ahead of the much anticipated summit, like we discussed earlier, between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC summit in San Francisco that's upcoming. Now, will that summit be a turning point, do you think, for the situation here on the Korean Peninsula? What do you think?
No, unfortunately not. Most experts, including myself, do not expect that the U.S.-China upcoming summit will be the significant turning point. And I don't think that it will make the significant impact on the situation on the Korean Peninsula either. It is mainly because they have contrasting opinions about the major issues like the high-tech industry, global supply chains, trade, security on Taiwan Strait, and South China Sea. And these topics are their core interests, and they don't want to make any concessions about their interest in any of the topics. So I think that they will just exchange their opinions about the topics at the summit. Meanwhile, both countries seem to agree that they needed to manage their relationship in order to prevent them from confronting an extreme security situation like a serious military engagements and escalation to a full-scale war around the Taiwan Strait or South China Sea. So I think that there is a high probability that the two countries will agree to establish a military hotline between them, and that will be their major achievement for the summit meeting. So it would not be possible for the upcoming summit to turn the tide of the intensifying U.S.-China strategic competition. So such an outcome will not be strong enough to make a positive impact on the situation around the Korean Peninsula.
Sure, we'll have to get back to you after that Biden-Xi summit comes to an end. All right, thanks so much for your insight. As always, Professor Mann, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
President Yoon announced that the first line of the high-speed commuter rail network, the GTX connecting Seoul to the outskirts of the metropolitan area, will open next March, with hopes of establishing a hyper-connected economic zone. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
South Korea plans to establish a broader economic zone through expediting the opening of the GTX high-speed commuter rail network. The first phase will begin with GTX-A from Dongtan Station, about 30 kilometers south of the capital, to Suseok in Seoul's Gangnam-gu district next March. During his visit to the GTX-A construction site on Monday, President Yoon noted the commute from Dongtan to Suseol will be around 19 minutes when the line opens. He added more lines, GTX-B and C, will be opened faster, making Seoul reachable in 30 minutes from anywhere in the greater capital region.
수도권 어디든 간에 30분 이내에 도착하고 서울까지 어느 지역을 가든지 1시간 이내에는 다 갈 수 있게. 그리고 중심부까지는 30분 이내.
The GTX-B line will connect Incheon just west of Seoul to Namyangju, east of the capital, and the C line will connect Yangju some 30 kilometers north of the capital to Suwon, just south of Seoul. Construction on the C line will begin at the end of this year, with work on the B line set to start early next year. The GTX project is one of Yoon's election pledges and part of his administration's policy tasks, where he vowed to open up an era of 30-minute commutes to and from the Seoul metropolitan area. President Yoon stressed that the GTX isn't just a transportation solution, but rather a way to create a hyper-connected economic zone. He emphasized its potential to change the economic landscape near GTX lines, such as stabilizing the real estate market and generating more job opportunities. The Korea Transport Institute expects the GTX project to affect the economy to the tune of some 30 trillion won, or $23 billion. 210,000 jobs are also expected to be created. As for fares, the president said the anticipated fare will be around 4,000 won, or roughly around $3 one way, but added the government will ensure fares will remain affordable.
저소득층과 어려운 서민들에게는 약 53%의 최대 할인율을 차등 적용해서 나머지는 정부 재정으로, 중앙정부와 지방정부 재정으로 이렇게 분담을 해서 지원할 계획입니다.
The president also promised more routes, including lines D, E, and F, each connecting the Seoul capital area with the outskirts of the metropolitan region. 신세벽, Arirang News.
On the first day of the resuspension of stock short selling on Monday, South Korea stocks had their biggest rally since 2020, with the country's benchmark Kospi surging well above 5%. In fact, trading on the tech-heavy Kosdaq even had to be halted for a moment. Our Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korean stocks jumped on Monday, the first day that the country temporarily banned short selling. According to the Korea Exchange, South Korea's benchmark index, the Kospi closed up 5.66%, while the secondary Kosdaq market rose 7.34%. This comes after the Financial Services Commission announced on Sunday it would impose a short-selling ban from Monday until at least June next year to prevent further massive losses by retail investors. And the upward trend was witnessed from the opening bell. The Korea Exchange said a sidecar limit was activated at 9:57 a.m. for 5 minutes when the Kosdaq 150 futures soared 6.02% from its previous close, and the Kosdaq 150 index jumped 7.3%. A sidecar limit is a trading curve that is activated when there is a rise of more than 6% compared to the previous close on the Kosdaq 150 futures, and when the Kosdaq 150 index rises 3% for more than a minute. This is the first time in 3.5 years that the sidecar has been activated. The gain was especially prominent in technology stocks, with secondary battery shares of EcoPro BM and EcoPro closing up 30% and 29% each. While this was largely owed to expectations that volatility in battery stocks would be lowered, it is uncertain how long this will last.
There is no guarantee that they will continue to rise in the long run. Those stocks rose because they're currently sensitive to government policies and changes in the market. It's also because the situation has changed quite suddenly.
The surge seen on Monday was also largely led by foreign investors. Unlike domestic institutions and retail individual investors who turned net sellers after the ban was announced, foreign investors bought local stocks. However, in the medium to long term, foreign investors may also turn into net sellers.
It hasn't even been a day yet, so this can't exactly be seen as a pattern. As of now, you can say that there are foreigners who expect stocks to go up, but who knows what will happen as time passes.
The expert added that investors need to continue using fundamental analyses to see which stocks and investors the short-selling ban will impact. 이수진, Arirang News.
The prices of overseas group tours for Koreans has seen the biggest jump in 13 years amid higher prices of travel services. According to Statistics Korea on Tuesday, overseas group tours in October cost 15.9% more than they did at the same time last year. This is the biggest on-year jump since September 2010. Now, the rise comes as a global inflation pushes up the cost of flight tickets, accommodation, and food, while increased oil prices lead to higher fuel tax. Industry sources also point to changing travel trends as more people tend to travel in small groups out of post-pandemic safety concerns and shift away from hitting multiple shopping spots. Meanwhile, prices for domestic group tours are on the decline due to the base effect and the rollout of discount coupons.
Good morning. I'm Kim Ji-young. We'll now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in Russia, where current Russian President Vladimir Putin seeks to stay in power by running in the March 2024 election. This decision by the 71-year-old former KGB agent will keep him in power through 2030. While Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov commented that the campaign has not been officially announced yet, Reuters sources stated that the decision has been made and the Kremlin's advisors are in preparation. Putin reportedly enjoys an approval rating of 80% inside Russia. He has been in control of Russia since succeeding Boris Yeltsin in 1999. The election comes amid the ongoing Russo-Ukraine war and Western sanctions on Moscow. Now moving over to Africa, where mass flooding has left at least 30 people dead as of Monday and tens of thousands of people displaced in Kenya and Somalia. The flooding began last month as the 2023 Deir seasonal rains intensified. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said the overflowing of the Juba and Shabelle rivers left many dead, homes and infrastructure destroyed. It also said some 2,400 residents of Somalia's Luke district are trapped by the flood waters. The heavy rains in Somalia came after 4 years of extreme drought. In neighboring Kenya, the death toll has risen to 15 since Friday, with the Kenya Red Cross saying the flash floods killed over 1,000 livestock and destroyed over 240 acres of farmland. On Monday in the UK, protesters from the Just Stop Oil climate change action group damaged the glass cover of a painting at London's National Gallery. 2 protesters in their early 20s were arrested after using safety hammers to smash the glass cover of the 17th century painting. Dozens of other Just Stop Oil activists who were blocking roads in nearby Whitehall were also detained. The painting, Rockaby Venus by Diego Velázquez, was previously damaged in 1914 after being slashed by Canadian suffragette Mary Richardson. Now, off the coast of the Italian island of Sardinia, local amateur divers on Saturday discovered up to 50,000 ancient Roman coins. According to Italy's Ministry of Culture, the recovered ancient coins are likely to be from a shipwreck from the 4th century off the coast of Arzachena in Sardinia. The bronze coins from this period are called follies, introduced around 294 AD by the then Roman Emperor Diocletian. Authorities have stated that the coins are in an exceptionally well-preserved state. A similar discovery of almost 23,000 coins was made in 2013 in the UK county of Devon.
A surge of frigid air filtered into South Korea overnight. The nation saw a significant drop in temperatures this morning. In fact, for parts of central regions, cold wave alerts are currently in place. Morning temperatures in Seoul are starting off at 4.4 degrees Celsius, which is the lowest of the season so far. Due to frigid wind chill, sensible temperatures will be much lower in the negative territory. Make sure to dress in layers to keep your body temperatures warm. Along with the cold temperatures, there will be strong winds from time to time. Coastlines and Jeju Island are currently under strong wind alerts. Inland regions will also see gusty winds from time to time, with winds gusting as fast as 15 meters per second. Make sure to secure any items that can get blown away. Daytime temperatures will get a touch warmer. Seoul and Chuncheon will be reaching 10 degrees Celsius. This round of cold snap will last until tomorrow. For this weekend, much colder temperatures are in the forecast. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Wednesday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.